What are we talking about? You didn't sign up to work as a member of the Teletubbies, bro. You didn't sign up to, like, be a citizen of the Bikini Bottom or whatever the like, dude, you have this job. All right, guys, so it looks like the Democrats and the Republicans have reached a deal on a spending bill. And this deal is particularly interesting because it puts DHS and ICE funding off for 2 weeks. And what's going to happen is there are going to be negotiations about what exactly is going down with DHS and ICE. So we'll read this from AP real quick. And this should not take very long at all. It's like very short, so just hang with me for like 20 seconds. But deal reached to get spending bill through Senate. There will still be a partial shutdown through the weekend at least. Now, this is published on January 30th. I should note as well, I don't know if any information has changed between some of the info I got for this video from AP and PBS from the 29th until the 30th, and then from the 30th until now. It doesn't appear so because CBS says that the Senate passed a funding package late Friday after striking a bipartisan deal, but the agreement still needs the approval of the House, which is not expected to return to Washington until Monday. And this was updated actually last night, recording this on February 1st at 8:52. So assuming nothing has changed, let's go ahead and read this again from Politico. The Senate reached a deal Friday afternoon to vote on a government funding package. As part of that agreement, struck among all 100 senators, the chamber will vote on 7 amendments to a sweeping appropriations package. The Senate will then take a final vote to pass the full package, which would float operations for multiple federal agencies through the remainder of the fiscal year, plus fund the Department of Homeland Security for 2 weeks to buy lawmakers more time to negotiate guardrails around President Donald Trump's immigration enforcement agenda. The House could take up the legislation as soon as Monday to end the partial government shutdown, expected to run through the weekend at least. So, as you can see there, interesting deal, allows times for these negotiations, and obviously it still has to go back through the House, so we'll see how that goes. But one other thing I wanted to talk about, I think this shows a couple interesting things. One, I think this is a real chance for Democrats to show something on immigration, okay? So that's the first thing, right? AP reported that they appear to be pretty tight-knit and united on this, which I think could be interesting. Another thing I wanted to talk about with the Democrats, too, is what exactly they are demanding. So let's take a look at this from AP. Some of this is a little vague, and I'm not entirely sure why it's like this. I wish there was more information, but let's look at this here. Democrats have laid out several demands asking the White House to, quote, end roving patrols and, quote, in cities and coordinate with law enforcement on immigration arrest, including requiring tighter rules for warrants. Now, I have not seen what exactly that means, and I wish there was a little more specifics, because I'm not saying that language is bad, but I really wanted to know, what exactly does roving patrols mean? How are we defining that? Are we going to define that in the same way across agencies? And another thing, too, is what kind of united fronts are going to define that? Are we going to say just the federal agency defines this? Are we going to look at each state and how they define this? So I think that's an interesting part. The second part there about the warrants, I definitely have heard issues about that kind of thing. Again, more specifics, what exactly does that mean by those tighter warrants? I think that information could potentially be really important. And then they also talked about this here. They also want an enforceable code of conduct so agents are held accountable when they violate rules. So again, enforceable code of conduct. What exactly does that mean? Is that an enforceable code of conduct that DHS is going to decide on? Is there going to be negotiations with Democrats on that? Is there going to be, in part, the state's input on what exactly held accountable, what exactly the rules are? I think these things are important. And if you guys know anything about what exactly that means, please leave a comment down below. I find it super interesting, but like I said, I'm just not really sure what it means. But here's something that's like super obvious that the Dems should get, no doubt. Schumer said agents should be required to have masks off, body cameras on, and that's a quote there, masks off, body cameras on. And then it continues, and carry proper identification as is common practice in most law enforcement agencies. I mean, look, that's I don't know what we're thinking at this point if that's not something that you think should be required. Honestly. I mean, look, that is just so basic. You are part of law enforcement. If you're going to take this job, it has responsibilities with it, all right? That's the trade-off. The trade-off is, as law enforcement, citizens should listen to you. Fair enough. But you have to act right, and you have to show who you are so we can hold you accountable if you act insane. This is not even a doubt, okay? And all these concerns about like doxing and all this, in fact, look at this real quick. We can see a quote of this. Right here. North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis said he is opposed to requiring immigration enforcement officers to show their faces, even as he blamed Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem for decisions that he said are, quote, tarnishing, end quote, the agency's reputation. And listen to this. Quote, you know there's a lot of vicious people out there, and they'll take a picture of your face. And the next thing you know, your children or your wife or your husband are being threatened at home, end quote, Tillis said. Now look, assuming there's nothing I missed in the context of that quote or anything else that I've said so far, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? You didn't sign up to work as a member of the fucking Teletubbies, bro. You didn't sign up to, like, be a citizen of the Bikini Bottom or whatever the fuck. Like, dude, you have this job that is important. You should know going into this. And if they weren't told this, that's kind of fucked. Fair enough. I don't know if they were told this. But there also is a little bit of personal responsibility of like, man, I'm going to be in law enforcement and they're going to mask me up. I don't know if maybe I shouldn't be a part of this. But that aside, this has to happen. These kind of quotes I just find ridiculous because while I do I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I'll give Tillis the benefit of the doubt that he genuinely believes there are potential issues here around doxing and that sort of thing. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm not even trying to strawman him. But the issue is, even when I steelman him, the point's still stupid. It's still dumb. Again, when you have that type of job, it comes with a trade-off and a responsibility. Citizens will treat you correctly, but there are certain things you need to do in exchange, okay? That's the trade-off we do. We're not doing masks. Body cameras gotta be on. I don't understand why, how that's even an issue. Why are they not on already? I mean, I assume based on this is reporting that they're not on already. Hey guys, I just wanted to do a quick fact check on the body cameras thing. So I was reading through this article a bit. This is from a local news affiliate. It seems like Fox 9. It seems local. It's published on January 7th. Headline here, some ICE agents wear body cameras, but not everywhere. I was reading through this. It's not entirely clear if this was something that Minneapolis officers were required to do. It stated ICE started issuing body-worn cameras to agents in select cities in 2024. Minneapolis is not one of the cities in the first phase of implementation. So again, just not entirely clear how much is required or not required of ICE agents. But look, moving forward, there's no doubt it needs to be a thing. Body cameras everywhere before doing these large operations. No masks, none of that. So I just wanted to add that in real quick. And I encourage you to, read this whole thing, read other information, comment down below if there's something you think I'm missing here. Thanks. The accountability thing, it's got to be there. And I think it should be. Second thing, the Republicans, I think this potentially shows that the Republicans are cracking. We talked about this the other day, that the polling, though there are some nuances to this potentially, show potential cracks for President Trump, particularly among independents. Now, I encourage you guys to go back and watch that whole video for the full context of that, because it's a little complicated, but still, the polling I still think shows potential cracking for Trump, because you have these low independent numbers, and it's not like Trump came out and said, Republicans, don't fucking do this deal at all. Don't do it at all. We're not doing it. On top of that, you had quotes from Republicans where they were not, at the very least, you could call them skeptical. Now, you have to go back to that video, watch the full quotes for the full context of that, but this is a crack potentially for Trump. And I think all those facts indicate that potentially. And the third point I want to make here, and this goes back to the polling thing I was speaking about earlier, this is a real opportunity for Democrats to get something out of this, right? And I say that because look at these polling numbers here. On the question, in your opinion, and this is about immigration, in your opinion, which political party has a better plan, policy, or approach to each of the following? 22% say Democrat, 25% say Republican. So technically, the Democrats are actually lower on that than the Republicans. But 35% say they don't know. Now, keep that in mind, because Another question here, if you scroll down here, overall, do you think efforts by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement or ICE agents to deal with unauthorized immigration in the country, and the choices are go too far, do not go far enough, are about right, or skipped, 63% of independents say they go too far. Now, what's interesting about that is I don't even think I realized this specific number, the 63% number, about independents when I was recording the previous video I was telling you about. But what's the takeaway from these numbers? It could show that's a gap. That's potential right there. Look, there's this hole that the Democrats could jump in to show improvement, to show the American people, we see what you don't like. We see that this is going too far in your eyes, or at least among independents, and we're going to change it. We're going to be the party to lead on this. Look, interesting numbers here. Like I said, go check out that other video about the polling. I think there's some interesting numbers, some interesting caveats, all that stuff. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll see you in the next one. And yeah, just like I said, let me know what you think.